On this episode of Phinside The NFL, we're going to discuss something I've been thinking about since the first wave of free agency, and that's, have the Miami Dolphins been trying to replicate the blueprint the Philadelphia Eagles laid out last season to win a Super Bowl this offseason? I'm going to give you my reasons why I think they were trying to. Whether they failed or not, that remains to be seen, but I think they've been trying to, and we're going to talk about that. Also, did Quinn Ewers give up millions of dollars in NIL money to enter the draft and become a Miami Dolphin? Man, we're going to talk about that and a whole ton more, including Albert Breer and what he heard about the Miami Dolphins search for a defensive tackle. A lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. And as always, let's get into this one.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score!
Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown!
The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan.
Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one. I want to know, am I trench gang? You know, the motto on this channel has been, we'll go as far as the offensive line takes us. Let me know, am I trench gang out in here? I don't know. People called me, said I was making excuses, but I just wanted, a good offensive line, Like, anyone who's been following me since 2019 when I started out on the Tuesday night panel, y'all know how the story goes. Before we drafted Tua Tagovailoa, I said, I don't care if you draft Tua. I don't care if you draft Herbert. I don't care if you draft Burrow. I don't care if you draft Jordan Love. I don't care if you draft Jalen Hurts. I said, build me what they have in Indianapolis or build me what they have in Oakland at the time. Because those were two of the top offensive lines, right? Quentin Nelson was in his prime. That offensive line in 2019 and 2020 in Indy was really, really good. They had finally built something for Andrew Luck, but it was too late. You know what I mean? The damage was done, basically. And then, obviously, Oakland, they weren't old at that time, right? That offensive line hadn't aged out yet, and that offensive line was special, man. So I've been saying, hey, build me something like that since 2019, baby. That's all I know. Jeez Louise. Shout out to Trench Gang, though. We know what's up. Because people want to say, oh, you want to build the trenches because of Tua. Nah, bro. You know what I said? Do you know what I said in 2019? The receipts are out there. Go find the Tuesday night panel. You'll find it. I said, you know what I said? You know what my reasoning for building that was? I give multiple, but I'll run them through because I remember it off the top of my head because I just say it so much. Number one. Okay, receivers are going to benefit from that. Why? We're seeing it. Quarterbacks don't have to have the ball out in an internal clock of 2.2 seconds. Ball out, bang, we're good. So receivers eat off that. Quarterback eats off that with the protection, gets more comfortable, etc., etc. The running game eats off of it. I mean, we saw it 2023 and 2024. We saw the difference of a good offensive line, run blocking wise, to a poor one. We saw what it did to the run game. But not only that, those were the three reasons I gave, but I always gave a fourth reason. And what would I say? Again, don't matter if you draft Tua, don't matter if you draft Burrow, don't matter if you, and I would name them. Don't matter if you draft Herbert, don't matter if you draft Jordan Love, if they don't work out, the O-line's set up for the next guy. This was my whole thing. Do the offensive line now. Hey, you're going to bring in a young quarterback in 2020, which ended up being, right? We started October 2019 when we started this draft. It was April 2020. So the whole point was get it for the young quarterback, but hey, if the kid don't work out, it's built for the next guy. That was my whole thing. It's built for the next guy. How is that a bad thing? That's getting out ahead of the curve if the quarterback don't work out. You know? Like, that was always my reasoning in 2019. If Burrow, Tua, Herbert, whoever didn't work out, you could draft another guy and at least you don't got to worry about the offensive line. But here we are, 2025, and guess what? Tua could go down this year. Austin Jackson could go down this year. Patrick Paul may not work out. James Daniels may look like a guy who's a year removed from an Achilles and not a guy who was playing some of the best ball of his career before that Achilles injury. So, you know, instead of using that time, I was saying this think about this. I was saying this in October 2019, people, on the Tuesday night panel with EM, TD, all them. This is what I was saying, okay? We are almost 6 years away. We are like 5.5 years since. And I'm still sitting here going like, God, what is going on with this offensive? Think about this. I know time flies when you're having fun, but think about this. In October, it's going to be 6 years since I entered the Dolphins YouTube community and said this stuff. And we're still here with more questions than answers. I just went over them. Is Austin Jackson going to stay healthy? Is James Daniels going to look like the guy he was before the injury, or a guy who looks like he's just removed from the injury? Because those are two different things, especially for a lineman in the trenches. Is Patrick Paul going to be the answer? Man, I got faith in Jonah Savaiinaea, because I've been preaching this kid since October, November on this channel that this is the guy. So I got faith, but even still, he's a rookie. He's an unknown. We don't know what he is yet. He hasn't played an NFL snap. It's unfair for me to sit here and say, oh, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Now you're going to say, well, reason, you said that about Brock Bowers. Well, listen, you can tell when you watch tape, generational. I've now used the word generational with Jonah Savaiinaea. Now, do I think athletically and what he offers and the upside is higher than Robert Hunt? Yes. I do agree. I do. I very much do so. I've said that before. I'll say it. And all of y'all know, I was a Robert Hunt guy when we drafted him. And people are out here telling all of you fans, oh, he's going to be a right tackle. I was the one telling all y'all, no. He's going to be a guard. Sure enough, that's where he wanted out. Made the Pro Bowl last year. I told y'all he'd be a Pro Bowl guard when we drafted him. And he did give us Pro Bowl level play, but we've talked about this. I entered this community in 2019, and I didn't believe all of you. And see, I can admit when I'm wrong. People who say the reason he can't admit when he's wrong, listen to this. I talk about this story all the time. I didn't believe all of you. You all told me, reason, there's bias against the Dolphins. Reason, the media treats us differently. And I'd be like, come on, man. And as I've entrenched myself deeper, especially in the South Florida community, yeah, 110%. I agree with you guys. I was wrong. You were right. 110%. And that's why Robert Hunt never got that. You're telling me Robert Hunt all of a sudden was far better last year than he was? That guy was an absolute staple in Miami. Please, there's a reason why I got $20 million, okay, without a Pro Bowl, because he was already giving you Pro Bowl level play. But I think Jonah Savaiinaea can be better. Yeah, from an athletic standpoint, I said it yesterday, the competition jump didn't matter. But remember, Robert Hunt came from the Sun Belt. So it's lower. We're talking about lower level competition than what now? Did Savaiinaea come from the ACC? Sorry, not the ACC. The SEC? No, he didn't come from the SEC. I get that. All right? You're not going to hear an argument with me about that. You're right. All right? But, I don't know. I just think, that Savaiinaea's got a really, really high ceiling to him. I really honestly do. So, and I really think they're going to be, a good line if they stay healthy. I think we got special. I think we got potential special stuff with this line. If it's healthy, man. If it's healthy. Let's hear it for power, no more finesse. Let's hear it, baby. Let's hear it. These guys showed conviction and went up and got their guy. And guess what? He's better than Liam Eichenberg, so you can sleep at night. About time we drafted trenches, and we're going to get into that, man. We're going to get into that. And you know what? Like, I'm feeling positive too. These people that are out here, we're not a 7-win team. Are you crazy? If this offensive line stays healthy, this is a 10-win team. Minimum. What are we talking about? Man, you know, and I gotta address this. The amount of people in this community sleeping on Jalen Wright, y'all gonna wake up this year. You know that? You're gonna wake up. Go back and watch his runs last year. I don't know what. They took his ball out of his hands after the fumble, but then they put the ball right back in the hands of Raheem Mostert when his fumble cost us the Arizona game. Okay? Jalen Wright was out here. What would you see him? You know, you'd see him leads to the right side, leads to the left side, whatever the case may be, you know? Outside zone runs to the right side, outside zone to the left side. It would lead, the holes are plugged, you know? An outside zone run, the whole team, the whole defense, you know, you could see them moving towards the play in the ball, like they knew exactly what was coming towards them. And how many times did we see him take one cut, plant that foot, cut back to his left or his right, whichever way was the opposite direction of the flow of the defense, cut it back and then cut it up the middle or cut it wherever up another gap and gain like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 yards when he should have been stopped in the backfield for, you know, like 3 or 4. I think people are really sleeping. Give Jalen Wright a good offensive line and watch this kid cook, all right? Watch. I'm going to tell you right now. Are these people sleeping on Jalen Wright? Man, I'm going to tell you. If this offensive line stays healthy, this running game, it might be levels of disgusting. We might be just saying. People forget, 2023. Ollie Gordon, we just got him. Where do we get him? 179th? This man was 7th in Heisman voting in 2023. 1,700 plus yards, 21 rushing touchdowns. And do you know why 2024's play took a dip? Go watch the film. The offensive line. The Oklahoma State offensive line went to the absolute gutter, and it impacted everything. You know, it matters. We do need that. That's what I'm saying. And here's my idea, man. Franklin, this is why I'm saying go get a Jedrick Wills. Go get me someone where either this. Go get me a guard or tackle or either this. Are we really that confident in Keon Smith? Think about this. If Austin Jackson goes down, do you want Keon Smith and Jonah Savaiinaea? Do you want a rookie and an inexperienced starter with a low ceiling? You want that on your right side? That's not for me. If you got to have a contingency plan for Austin Jackson, it's got to be a veteran. So it's got to be an either veteran guard or tackle. Why? If it's a guard, slide him in. Savaiinaea kicks out to tackle. If it's a tackle, Savaiinaea can stay at guard, which would be the ideal dream. This is why I wanted Jedrick Wills, and I've had him on my first wave of free agency target list and now my second wave. Stick him there. Listen, Cleveland moved him to left tackle. You go to Cleveland to die. This guy played right tackle at Alabama. He was a first-round pick, protecting to his blind side. We're not asking him to be a starter. We're asking him to be a swing and a pinch. And that way we don't have to shuffle Savaiinaea around. Let him settle at guard. Because even at Arizona, right? Go look at Arizona. Where did he play? Left tackle, right guard, right tackle. You know? Like if you look at, when you go back and you go look at the offensive line big board the guard big board. And you remember Savaiinaea was number 2 on that. You know, I had to go back, but I got y'all clips of him at right guard. You know what I mean? Not just at tackle. So, because you can find clips of him playing guard. But I'm telling you, that offensive line stays healthy. Please. Holy, it might be special. It might, I'm going to get into the front 7 on the other side, but holy, that might be special too. Now, for all of you that really wanted it to go down, I hate to break your hearts. Well, no, not really. I don't mean to break your hearts. George Kittle, that dream is dead. All right. He got new money, and I told y'all he needed new money. So he got a 4-year, $76 million contract extension, 76.4 to be exact. And he is now the highest paid tight end in football. All right. $40 million of that is guaranteed. and y'all thought the Dolphins were going to trade for that, where were they going to find that money? Someone tell me where they're going to find that money. Bradley Chubb is still a Dolphin, Michelle. He restructured his money. He's taking a lot less. He's down to like $3 or $4 million cap hit. He restructured, which is, can I be honest with you? You know, like, I'm going to get back to the Kittle thing in here a sec, but you bring up something because I want to talk about this. Who else is really excited if Tyreek Hill's around for that dynamic in that room? Huh? Bro, I am Team Bradley Chubb, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay? This man, let's be real here. Let's be real. Bradley Chubb was the one man who stood 10 toes down on how he felt about the Tyreek Hill situation to the media and the public. Now, he made it a little bit more polite than I'm sure it was behind closed doors, but he let us all know he wasn't vibing with that. Okay? Then this man goes and takes a pay cut, like a massive restructure, to come back here for a lot less money. Who's excited to see how this goes? I'm going to tell you this right now. Tyreek gets out of line, I would not be shocked if Tyreek got out of line and we hear of like some altercation and Chubb steps up to him. That wouldn't even shock me. It wouldn't even shock me at this point. Wouldn't even. It really wouldn't. Think about this for a second. This man took like a $10 million, $9 million, like, what was it, like 10 million-ish? I don't remember the exact number, but it's 10 million-ish. He took like a $10 million pay cut to come back after already stepping up and talking to, when he was asked by the media about Tyreek, already basically telling us his displeasure. You think he's going to let that slide if Chubb is healthy? You know what I thought when I heard Chubb say what he said last year? I said to myself, after the season was done, you can go find the clip on X or wherever, but if you go back and you listen to it, man, the first thing that came to my mind is like, I wish he was healthy this year because he would have put that man in check. Whoo! He would have put him in check real quick. Chubb wants to win. Boss White 1242 is 110% right. He's taking a pay cut. He's been in this locker room for a couple of years. He has friends. He believes in the players. He believes in the coaching staff. He's actually showing that he's a true leader like Armstead did. And Armstead already had, but I'm talking about like how Armstead did after the season ended. Chubb's done the same. And I don't think he's not going to have no time for that nonsense. I'm going to tell you this right now. I would not be shocked. If Tyreek Hill, like let's say we start out like 2-2 or like something like that, and Tyreek Hill, you know, in the locker room, I would not be shocked. I would really not be shocked. Wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Brother, I don't think anyone's going to offer Isaiah Bond. I don't think anyone's going to offer Isaiah Bond a contract. I've talked about him. Put these sexual assault allegations that he turned himself in for aside. By the way, have you guys actually read into the Isaiah Bond case and like actually what he did and what he's accused of and like what they have with text messages and stuff in that sexual assault thing? Like, go look that thing up. I was reading into it yesterday. Oh my God. They got him. They got, like, oh, it's old. Like, something's happening. Something's happening. No. That's not true. Mike Green had allegations. He had an allegation in high school, which tanked his recruiting process. I'll tell you the Mike Green and why he went early second right now. And you're going to hear something you probably haven't heard anywhere else, but I've been sitting on this forever, just like I know exactly why what Walter Nolan's character issues are. You know? So, Mike Green had an allegation in high school, tanked his recruiting process. Virginia Tech came in and said, listen, we will bring you on a no-nonsense scholarship. He said, okay, cool. Within a year of being in Virginia Tech, he had another allegation. Okay? He then obviously left to Virginia Tech, went to Marshall, et cetera, right? So, those are allegations. Isaiah Bond's been charged. Isaiah Bond has been charged. And look into Isaiah. There's text messages And like him basically admitting he did it, etc., etc. If you go look into it, it's not good for Isaiah Bond. Yeah, it's not good. But anyways, I'll give you the piece Mike Green that no one wants to talk about. So you saw Rappaport, right? You saw Rappaport had his little mic up and was talking about on draft weekend about when the Ravens took him. He said, you know, a lot of teams didn't find his answer satisfactory in the interview process, so I'll give you some insight. So I had got a direct plug into the scouting department in the NFC, in an NFC team, okay? This is what I was told. Said NFC team interviewed Mike Green. They said to him, listen, okay, what's up with the sexual allegation charges, blah, 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 sexual assault allegations. What's up with the sexual assault? I shouldn't use charges. I correct myself. Allegations with him. Charges are with Bond. Allegations are with Mike Green. So anyways, they said, what's up with the allegations? You know what he said? This is basically his answers, and not so many words, but I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically it. You know, whether it happened or didn't happen, it doesn't matter anymore. That was basically his stance. Was like, oh, they don't matter anymore. Whether it did or didn't happen, that's not of consequence. And these people were like, are you serious right now? Are you, you know? So I know some teams took him directly off their board. That's why he fell to the second. I know some teams took him directly, like right off their board. And I'm not talking about like Will Johnson was medically disqualified from this same NFC team I'm talking about. They had Will Johnson medically disqualified from their board, and I know a few other teams did, including some AFC teams, had Johnson medically disqualified. And that was only from the first round, though. You know, Will Johnson was only medically disqualified for the first round by some teams. Good old boy right there, Mike Green, was totally taken off some teams' boards. And you know what? Can I be honest with you? It makes sense that the Ravens took him. You want me to be real with you? Keep it $150? They've known about Justin Tucker and all that massage stuff. You know, they've known about that. The Ravens have been covering that up. No one wants to talk about this, but I will. The Ravens have been covering that up for years. His wife's known about that for years. That's been known throughout Baltimore with Tucker. Go ask Neil, who lives out there and who knows people in the Ravens organization. And he knows people like, you know, in the football industry out there. That's been known for years. Mike Green makes sense. They're just, you know, and I try to tell you guys this, and it's real life. All these teams have cleaners. You know, like these teams have legitimate cleaners who deal with problems and clean them up from a PR standpoint, hush money, NDAs, make things go away, all that jazz. That shit is real, man. Don't think that don't exist, because it exists. You know, it's the same reason. Look at, okay, perfect example. Look, let's go to not the Ravens, let's go to the Steelers. Look at the amount of problems Tomlin and that team have been able to keep a lid on, and then when they finally get too much and they let those players go, they're like uncoachable anywhere else. You can't get, they go from elite Hall of Fame trajectory production to nothing. Who do we want to talk about? Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, etc., etc. It's crazy. Some organizations are just good at handling things internally, from the locker room to the staff to their cleaners. That's just how it works, man. Organizationally, they move as one. And what did we get caught? We got caught with our hand in the cookie jar with the Flores thing. That's literally it. You know, we can't move. Listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. Why do you think Chris Breer probably has a longer leash than many of us expect? Who knows where all the bodies and the Flores stuff are buried, huh? Now, let me ask you this. Do you want to make that a disgruntled employee, or do you want to make that a happy employee until the Flores stuff goes away? And I'm going to tell you this much, and I know the gameplay by Ross. The gameplay with Ross is this. They're trying to get it to NFL arbitration. You know why they're trying to get it to NFL arbitration and out of federal court? Because if it goes to NFL arbitration, do you think the NFL is going to subpoena Chris Breer and multiple big executives to come and rat on one of their organizations and potentially make them look bad? Hell no. But federal court don't give a damn. They don't have ties to anyone. So, I mean, you can clearly even see what the play is. You can clearly even see what the play is with Breer and stuff right now. He's Garfinkel's boy, and he knows where the body's lying in the Flores thing, and that thing's still, in federal purgatory trying to get moved to NFL arbitration. So if it gets moved to NFL arbitration, well, now it don't matter if you know where the bodies lie, Chris. Because the shield's going to protect us. You want to keep it real here for a little bit about how franchises operate? There you go. Whew. And shout out to Andrew Van Ginkel. He reached a 1-year agreement today. He got a $23 million extension. 22.4 of that guaranteed. Shout out to Andrew Van Ginkel, making Chris Greer look like he made the wrong move. It is what it is. Shout out to Andrew Van Ginkel. All right, let's get into this stuff. Now, let's talk about this. I want to talk about this. So I've been thinking about this. This is what I've been teasing since the free agency. And I've really sat back and I've watched everything. And, I was originally going to do this before the draft. And then I said, you know what? Let me see how the draft plays out. And let me see if I get a little more verification. And I believe I did. So, have the Miami Dolphins been trying to replicate the Philadelphia Eagles blueprint specifically on defense when it comes to roster building this offseason? And it makes sense because you got to get through the Kansas City Chiefs to even have a shot at doing anything in the playoffs. Right? We learned that in the wild card round 2 playoffs ago. Sooner or later, you're going to have to slay the demon. So I'm looking and let me just tell you the things that I've seen that make me wonder this. So you go back and you look at the Eagles last year, right? That blueprint that I'm talking about is being able to win consistently with a dominant 4-man rush and dropping as many men as you can into coverage. Because this formula is what proved to be way too much for the Chiefs. Like, go back and go look at how the Bucs beat them. How did the Bucs beat them? Right? They had that constant pressure. Now they weren't just strictly relying on 4-man rushes, but they weren't having to send a 5th or 6th man very often. In that, obviously the offensive line was much more beat up. But it's worked twice. And see, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. It's worked when the Chiefs had a beat-up offensive line, but it's also worked when the Chiefs had a really good offensive line, which is what we saw last year. Now, is this rocket science? Is this... are we talking about Einstein levels of quantum physics? No. No, if you can win with a 4-man rush and drop a lot of men into coverage, yeah, you're gonna give a lot of problems when people drop back. And especially if that 4-man front can be effective stopping the run with just 4 of them. Now you're into yeah, guys will come up and run support, but they're just dominant enough where they don't even need to rely on it. And this is what I thought the plan was. I'm going to tell you this. Before the draft happened, and before Calais Campbell signed with Arizona, what the feeling for me was that's where they were headed. And I'll tell you why. They were going to be bringing back a healthy Bradley Chubb. They were going to be bringing back a healthy Jalen Phillips. They already had Chop Robinson in the mix. You would think, okay, that's enough. Like, holy jeez, how many snaps do we have to go around? But what were they doing? They were still trying to double up with Joey Bosa. Right? They were not joking around. They were like, whoa, we are going to send the house. And, I mean, you go look at last year, Nolan Smith Jr., Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Jalix Hunt. 4 good, consistent pass rushers on the edge. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I've known and I've been reporting to all of you, not just my personal love for Kenneth Grant, but what I've been hearing privately and their love for Kenneth Grant. We already had Zach Sealer in-house. We knew Benito was coming back, right? But we know Benito's like, okay, 2 down, whatever, right? But then they were confident they were going to get Calais Campbell, and I'm telling you right now, listen to me and listen to me carefully. They were drafting Kenneth Grant whether they brought back Calais Campbell. So let's think about this right now. Their front 7 vision right now, let's start at the front. Let's start with the front 4. Their front 4 vision was Sealer with a rotation of Calais Campbell and Kenneth Grant, that being your main force in the middle. And then off the edges, Chop, Phillips, with a rotation and a blend-in of Chubb and Joey Bosa. Sure sounds a lot like, I don't know, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter, along with Nolan Smith Jr., Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, and Jalix Hunt, no? See where I'm going here? Now you can see. You can start to see the pattern of what their vision was. But it didn't stop there. Look at what they tried to do that second level. Yeah, they brought back, obviously, he was coming back, and I think they're going to extend him, Jordan Brooks. But look at, they didn't want Tyrell Dotson. Guys, they were going to bring in Bosa and Dre Greenlaw. Okay, that's what they were trying to do. And you go look at, who do they have over there? Right? Zach Bond, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Oren Burks. And they were trying to Dre Greenlaw with Jordan Brooks right behind that front 4 with the depth I was just telling you about. This is what the plan was. That's why they weren't stressing corner and free agency. Because they thought they were going to be able to execute all of these moves. And they're thinking to themselves, listen, these guys aren't going to have 4 or 5 seconds and have picnics in the pocket anymore. And look at the safety room. Look at what they did at the safety room. This is how much they were in on Grant. They put themselves in a position where they were okay to miss out on Starks and Emil Wari, and they even let us know that before the draft. They literally let us know that before the draft, that they were okay. They basically told us that they thought they had their starters already at the safety room. They said they thought they had their starters, not to sleep on Elijah Campbell, and we know they're high on Patrick McMorris. So that's where they're like, you know what? We're going to build that elite front, and we don't need an elite corner room. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles were like, okay, yeah, we had Darius Slay, but now they're like, whatever, move off of them. Now they did have a better corner room, but they supplemented in the draft, right? Like Quinyon Mitchell and DeJohn Cooper hit. And that was big for them. Now, that's the only difference, is they did hit on the back end better than we did. But Darius Slay because they didn't foresee listen, the Ramsey stuff, it wasn't part of the initial plan, but obviously it started coming up in February. So they knew it was going to be an issue. But that didn't even press them. And now I feel like the next thing they're going to build, because I think they're going to trade for a corner. I don't think they're going to just sign a corner. I wouldn't be surprised if they sign and trade for a corner. I think now they're going to try and just rebuild that whole room. That's why the 2-second strategy won't work with those type of teams. Exactly. So I'm looking at how they're building this defense right now. And if you look at what the vision was to have and then look at, they doubled up on Jordan Phillips. And I think that would have been a real possibility again, even if you had Calais. Because I think if they would have had Calais and they would have doubled up on Jordan Phillips with Grant, they would have been like, with the front. If they would have got, especially if they would have got Joey Bosa and Dre Greenlaw too. Like a guy who I will never know. And maybe this caused them to move up because they started seeing guys they like go. But listen, I reported this twice because I kept hearing it. I heard it from multiple people. This team was very high on Carson Schlesinger. Now, I was under the impression they weren't going to draft a linebacker because they felt they had other pressing needs. But they weren't straying away from the linebacker. Like, I'm telling you, I don't think if an option comes up to upgrade over Tyrell Dodson, I do think they're going to try to. And I think they're going to try and make another play for one of these edge rushers. I wouldn't be shocked if if they've had contact with Zadarius Smith just to feel out what his market is. And really, it makes sense that Weaver is doing this. Why? Because what Philadelphia did last year is kind of what the Ravens do. Like, those philosophies almost kind of go hand in hand. It's just the Eagles most recently have executed it the best. Right? So that's why this all makes sense. And what we're going through right now, and why I think a lot of people are panicking about the cornerback room, and I've said this, we're going through a transition right now, people. We are transitioning from a team that was built from the back up, and now we're going to be built from the front back. And look at Philly. That's kind of how they were built, right? Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean were the cherries on top, but they were draft picks, right? They weren't big trades or expenditures, whatever. You know, Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson had already been there for a few years. The final cherries on top were the draft picks on the back end because they had finished building from the front out. And we've got that. We've got our Jalen Carter in now in Kenneth Grant. Right? Like, I think, our Milton Williams is Zach Sealer and he's better. So, and I think potentially with Jordan Phillips, if you properly develop him, he's going to take some time. You got a Jordan Davis. You got your Jordan Davis now. Right? And we've got the edges. And listen, I know Dotson isn't Greenlaw, but he's still pretty good. And you can tell now we're just in the transition of building from the front to the back. And I think what really tipped the scale was Weaver being here and his background with the Ravens, but also the success they just saw against KC. And to be the man, woo, you got to beat the man. And they probably watched that and they're like, okay, pull the trigger. And we know Greer is what? He's always been willing. He'll take certain picks where he'll make his pick, i.e. Cam Smith, right? He took Cam Smith there when McDaniel wanted to go Achane. So he'll have his guys that he'll dig in on. But for the most part, especially if you got evidence of something working, he'll, give him the grocery list and he'll go out and try and get you the groceries. So now we just need those trenches to stay healthy on the other side. Well, we need the edges to stay healthy on the defensive side. But, hey, you need those trenches on the other side to be a little bit, to stay healthy too. But you can see the vision coming together now. I've told you, that's why I don't understand why people on X and stuff were surprised about Savaiinaea's RAS score and that they targeted him. Clearly, with what they're trying to do and the speed they have built in that receiver room and out of the backfield, you need guys who move in space. This is why Tyler Booker was never going to be a fit. Okay? You got even if you want to implement some inside zone and some power, some gap stuff more, you still need fast guys. Because you're still going to come back to those screens. You're still going to come back to the bread and butter of the outside zone. We know how it works. I have not watched it, Fake Spike. I have not watched it yet. I haven't even watched the Jackson Dart one yet. I watched McCord, and Will Howard, and Seth Hennigan. After I did my quarterback board, I watched Seth Hennigan. Photographic memory on that kid. Where did he go? I didn't even look where my boy Seth went. Does anyone know where Seth Hennigan went? I don't know where he went. I didn't even look it up. But I haven't watched it. I'm going to watch that, and I'm going to watch Jackson Dart. I'm going to watch Jackson Dart. I have seen the clip about the snap count with Jackson Dart or whatever like that. But you know what's funny, though? I'm going to be honest with you. I totally forgot Quinn Ewers was that guy with that mullet cut a couple years ago. I really honestly forgot about it. Right? Seth Hennigan went to the Jags? Ooh, I like that. Seth Hennigan has a photographic memory. I don't know if you guys watched that episode. Go watch that episode. Gruden didn't have to repeat himself one time. He just like picked it up. It was crazy. Seth was quick with it. So, but yeah, back to the trenches. I think now you're seeing the vision. And I think, can I be honest with you? You know, go to the Michael Jordan meme. I think they're starting to take the soft narrative a little personal. I think they're starting, and it's about damn time. But hey, better late than never, and maybe it is too late. You know, too little, too late. But they're starting to take it serious. Clearly, they're starting to take that serious, and they're like, we're not rolling with that anymore. You know, so yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But speaking of Quinn Ewers, I actually want to show you guys this. I don't know if you guys saw this. We're getting some draft stuff here. Check this out. Now, this is an article I found. This is from January 16th. Check this one out. Sources. Texas QB Quinn Ewers turned down $8 million NIL transfer offer in deciding to enter the 2025 NFL Draft. Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers turned down an $8 million NIL offer to transfer to another school for his final year of eligibility because he's ready to move on and enter the 2025 NFL Draft. That's crazy. And also preserve his college football experience as a Longhorn. Sources close to Ewers told Horns 24/7. Ewers could have earned more in one season next year than roughly $6 million in NIL revenue he's earned the past 3 seasons in Austin, sources told Horns 24/7. Ewers also earned $1.4 million by signing with GT Sports Marketing when he enrolled at Ohio State in the fall of 2021. 2 NFL scouts told Horns 24/7 they expect Ewers to be selected anywhere from late first round to early third round. Look at that's what 2 NFL scouts were telling them in all the way back in January. My, how things changed. First, and then it gets into what the money, right? So, like, that's crazy. I'm telling you, people forget. Listen, that's why I gave this a B+. I don't know how anyone's hating on this pick, the value we got him at. Do I think he's better than Tua? No. But from a structure standpoint, do I think he can be better and operate this offense better than Zach Wilson? Yeah, I actually do. Sorry. I actually believe that. I really do. And I've said this before, I don't think Ewers is going to be given a fair shot, which is a damn shame. And I've said this, at least in year 1, because they've got $6 million guaranteed to Zach Wilson. They're going to let politics come into play here. It is what it is. I think Ewers okay, is he the athlete or does he have the arm Zach Wilson has? I've said this before. No, he doesn't. But when you're talking about from a timing, when you're talking from an anticipatory standpoint, when you're talking about from an accuracy from the short to intermediate, attacking middle of the field, and tight windows effectively, because you have enough drive and velocity, but also you have that accuracy, you have that anticipatory ability. He has that. Zach Wilson don't. Go back to the BYU film. All of Zach Wilson's best plays of his career, whether in college or football, are out of structure. Why do you think Sean Payton said bye-bye and they gave Jarrett Stidham all that money? Right? Jarrett Stidham's not the athlete. Jarrett Stidham doesn't have the arm that Zach Wilson has, but he can operate the offense from structure. And they have more faith in that if something happens to Bobo than if they got to let good old Zach Wilson go out there and play backyard school ball. This is why we know why Sean Payton despised Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson, since the Seahawks days, hasn't been a guy who thrives in structure. Now, the problem that he's ran into is he's no longer the athlete, and he's no longer the player he was 12 years ago. You know, this is why I always praise Mike Vick. Give Mike Vick his praise. I will always give him his flowers when it comes to as a football player. As a human being, I don't know him from Adam and Eve. That's a discussion for people that know him, not me. But as a football player, I always talk about this. And this is another reason, another feather in Andy Reid's cap. Look at how good he became in structure under Andy Reid. Look at how good he became. He became a great pocket quarterback. And he could kill you with his legs if he got outside. I'm telling you. Man, we missed out on... Mike Vick could have gone down as like... He would have got a gold jacket, man. If he never had that hiccup. I mean, that guy had a hiccup. Came back and played the way he did. And he was in his, 20s? And then into his 30s? Y'all want to bring X back? We're really having conversations about bringing X back when we saw the lower body injuries stacking up, specifically in the groin and the hammy. We saw him losing steps. He's been out of football for over a year. And then we want to bring that back and say, yeah, let him have it. Never mind the off-field issues. Are we serious? Come on, man. You know, I'm telling you, when these guys take a year off ball, they're never the same. Ever. Look at Deshaun Watson. Never the same, bro. I don't know. Something happens. The game is so fast, it just passes you by. So, anyways. Now, continuing on here, I got a George Kittle signed today. That was the big news. But in an article Albert Breer put out with a whole bunch of tidbits, remember I gave a tip of the cap to Albert Breer. He was the only big media guy pre-draft saying we were targeting Kenneth Grant. I read the article up here for you guys. Look at what he said. Sometimes teams dive into certain positions, and it does indeed wind up being a tell on where they're going. Along those lines, I heard in the weeks leading up to the draft that the Miami Dolphins were all over defensive tackles. I even got a heads up that GM Chris Breer was in Ann Arbor in the fall to live scout the Michigan-Oregon game, which featured 3 of this year's 5 first-round defensive tackles. Sure enough, the Dolphins took 2 defensive tackles, Kenneth Grant and Maryland's Jordan Phillips, with 2 of their first 5 picks. Remember, I'd been telling you guys, patrons and channel members, I'd been telling you guys for months and months and months that they were locked in on Kenneth Grant. I kept hearing his name. This is what makes me wonder if Carson Schlesinger getting picked high made the move up for Savaiinaea, because I kept hearing Carson Schlesinger's name too privately. And then Carson Schlesinger got snagged, and all of a sudden they're not playing around, and they get intel that the New England Patriots want Jonah Savaiinaea, and they jumped them. So I'm wondering if, he was another guy who might have been in play for them. But, I'm just saying, it's very, 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 very interesting how if you kept your ears to the street privately, I mean, I don't know how people that weren't. I don't know how I was the only one who was nailing this. I really don't. But okay, I'll take it. Another feather in my cap. But yeah, it was. The signs were everywhere. The signs were everywhere. All you had to do was look, and then you had to watch the tape, and you could see why. This is why I kept telling you guys. Why do you think I kept saying to each and every one of you over and over again? What did I kept saying, guys? If they took Christian Wilkins at 13 and Chris Breer was salivating over him, what do you think he's going to do with Kenneth Grant? I was literally saying this for months. Why do you think I was saying that? Come on. All right. Now, Marcel Louis-Jacques in the post-draft questions by ESPN, he said for the Dolphins, what is the plan at cornerback? Miami entered the draft with needs of defensive tackle, offensive guard, and cornerback. It addressed the trenches in the first rounds, but didn't take a cornerback until round 5. The Dolphins trade Jalen Ramsey, which they are trying to do, so there's confirmation. They are trying to trade him right now. They're not waiting for post-June 1st. They're trying to get rid of him right now. they'll need to introduce 2 new starting corners before the season begins. GM Chris Breer has suggested the team will look to the veteran free agent pool to fill its remaining needs. It's just a matter of which players are interested in signing. This is why I would not be shocked if we hear I would not be shocked if we sign someone and trade someone. I would be calling Green Bay, hey, Jair Alexander for Ramsey straight up. Let's do it. And then I would still turn around and assign an Asante Samuel or Russell Douglas. I would still turn around and sign them and add them to that room. Another thing too, Jalen Watson. I know he's not a sexy name, but go watch the tape. Okay, he was a 7th round pick in Kansas City. He's turned into a stud, ladies and gentlemen. They can't afford him. I would be all over calling them to see if Jalen Watson is available, because I have heard whispers he might be on the block, and I've even read articles where they have him on the block. So I would be calling about, I know everyone wants Greg Newsome because he's the name from Cleveland, but remember, he got benched last year. Jalen Watson has emerged as a legit starter. I'm telling you, he's good. And you can bring him in. And you can trade for him and then still go out and spend the money and add another corner to that room. So, But here's another thing, too, just for you guys to know. The Miami Dolphins, Barry Jackson did confirm today, there has been contact between accomplished cornerback James Bradberry and the Dolphins this offseason. An incident report that a meeting is lined up is not accurate. Miami has expressed preliminary interest in a few vet cornerbacks, including Russell Douglas, and they'll do something with some cornerback or 2 at some point. We'll see who they land on. Samuel, Mike Hilton, Gilmore, Griffin, among other options. Now, I've talked about this. Asante Samuel Jr., would love him, but is he the type of physical guy they want? Mike Hilton, he's a slot. So if you sign Mike Hilton, are you pushing Kohu out to the boundary? Stephon Gilmore, long in the tooth, probably better as a 2 right now than a number 1. Shaq Griffin, same thing. Shaquille Griffin, same thing. I'd probably want him as a 2, not a 1. The problem is the ones you're landing on are like trade for Jair Alexander or sign Asante Samuel. And then the list pretty much ends there. But again, we went into our, how they seem to be approaching building that front. So, and how they have built their safety room to try and mitigate the risk of not overly investing in corner. It's clear that's what they're trying to do, right? So, a question I keep getting asked is, for 2026, what is our projected compensatory picks outlook currently looking like? And right here, this is what it looks like. We are currently projected to get a 4th round compensatory pick. So, that's it right now. And then when you look at the formula right here, it's basically James Daniels, he canceled out, Calais Campbell, Zach Wilson canceled out, Robert Jones. So, yeah. You look at it, we've lost more non-CFAs than we've gained. But right now it is looking like we are going to have a 4th round pick because of Javon Holland. So, now, fair question right here. Very fair question. Would you stay away from Alexander or Samuel, not based on the talent input? But I think I don't know about all there mentally. I think it's about the injury history. I don't know about mentally. I'm not a psychologist. I've never evaluated these guys. But from what I'm talking about is a man, when you look at from an injury standpoint, and the problem is you kind of backed yourself up into this you've kind of backed yourself up into this scenario where you got to take the best you can get right now. You know? So, you know, I don't know. It is what it is. Now, what really shocked me, and you know, it's crazy, and I'm about to go off right now. Check this out. The Dolphins fans made the third most negative tweets about their draft performance. Miami Dolphin fans made over 29,000 tweets that were negative over the draft weekend. Look at this, number 3, only the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns. Okay, I'm actually about to go in on 2 fan bases because I didn't look at this. First of all, what the hell are they? Before we get to the Dolphins, what are the Houston Texans fans crying about? Are you serious right now? Bro, they just turned around and paired Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins together with Christian Kirk, John Michie, and Nico Collins. Are you crazy? Tell me what you're mad about. They went and got, now, am I a huge fan of Ariante Ursary? No, but they got him at good value. They got Ursary at really good value. They got Luke Lachey as a UDFA. They got one of the safeties I liked on the board instead of where we went with Trader. They got Jalen Reed. You know, they had some good picks for what they had to work with, man. And they addressed stuff. I don't know what they're mad about, but okay, anyways. Now let's go to the Miami Dolphins. Dolphin fans, are you crazy? Like, what accounts were these coming from? Huh? They went out and got an absolute alien at defensive tackle. Stop, and I'm going to tell you this. Stop listening to these people. If anyone calls them strictly a nose, they don't know how to project properly. And they haven't watched the film. The guy was playing 0 all the way out to 4i. To say he's a nose is to pigeonhole him as like a 0. Okay, he's not 350, 360 anymore. He's down to like 330, 340. Okay, so they got an alien. They got basically a better version of Christian Wilkins with higher pass rush upside and a better athlete. And Christian Wilkins is already a really good athlete. Okay, so I don't know what you're mad at there. That's number 1. Number 2, y'all have been begging for them to upgrade the offensive line. Not only did they do that, now they went out and got one of the best options available in the draft for the interior offensive line, and they showed some conviction, and they made a fair trade. By whatever trade chart you use, they made a fair trade. On the Rich Hill trade value chart, we came out up 1 point. On the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, we lost by like 3 points. That's like nothing. So it was a fair trade, and they got their guy. And then they doubled up on adding another really high upside defensive tackle. So now, am I expecting, you know, I'm looking at Jordan Phillips as a rotational player early on in his career. I'm not thinking this guy's going to be a legit starter, but that's a good piece. Especially, you got to tip your cap to them for being smart with their picks to an extent too. Look at the defensive tackle market right now. There's nothing. Nothing. What would you rather? Jonathan Hankins or Jordan Phillips in the third? I think that's a pretty easy answer. So Quinn Ewers was fantastic value. Ollie Gordon, 7th in Heisman voting 2 years ago. You get him at 179, fantastic value. Would I have gone different ways than Jason Marshall and Dante Trader? Yes. I thought there were better corner safety options on the board, and I thought there was better options at double dipping at offensive guard. But hey, the scouting department proved me wrong on Patrick McMorris last year because I went and dived into the tape. I went a couple years back. I saw what they saw. Hopefully they do it again this year with at least one of those two guys. I think it'd be Trader more than Marshall, but we'll see. And I thought they hit the UDFA class out of the park. I think Andrew Armstrong is going to take his Akama spot. That's done. I think Eugene Asante is going to take Channing Tindall's spot. I think Theo Weiss has a real shot. I think John Sanders has a shot. I think Josh Proby might surprise people because of his athleticism. So there's some interesting things they've done in this draft and moving forward. And man, I think Quinn Ewers, I like this pick, man. Man, people forget how good this kid was. Now, did he plateau? coming out of 2023, just like Shador did. Looked like he plateaued in 2024. Maybe, yeah. But, hey, we didn't draft him to be Jackson Dart, or we didn't trade up for him like he was Jackson Dart in the first round. So, temper your expectations, Over 500 people watching right now. Please do me the favor. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Programming, no. I'm going to be live 12:30 p.m. tomorrow. Lunchtime matinee. Me, and I'm bringing back Ryan Roberts. And I'm going to have a couple guests on. Ryder's going to come on next week. Ryan Roberts is coming on tomorrow, 12:30. We're going to break down the whole Dolphins draft, and I'm going to ask a real question that I think needs to be asked, okay? So, going to be good. Remember, Ryan's dad's a Dolphins fan, so not only did you get one of the best analysts in the game when it comes to the draft, his dad is a Dolphins fan, so he's invested. So, we'll be discussing that 12:30 tomorrow. Smash that like button. Fins up all day, every day. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a fantastic rest of your day.